Welcome to the paleontology session. I'm thrilled to be here today to talk to you about some of the amazing fossil resources protected here in Grand Staircase-Escalante National Monument. My name's Joe Sertich. I'm wrapping up a 6-month paleotech research position here with the Bureau of Land Management. But before that, I started working down here almost 20 years ago, first as a graduate student and then as the curator of dinosaurs at the Denver Museum of Nature and Science. And I've been part of a huge collaborative team now working on uncovering this lost world of amazing dinosaurs. So the fossils that we've been finding have allowed us to paint this amazing picture that you see here of dinosaurs, fossil plants, small animals. So if you look closely, you'll see things like turtles and crocodiles and birds in this picture. And so we're working on every aspect, and that involves a whole collaborative team of paleontologists and geologists and other scientists trying to understand what Grand Staircase's fossils mean in the broader picture of North America's evolution. So when we talk about the fossil record from Grand Staircase, what we're usually talking about is the fossil record of this amazing wedge, this huge triangle of rock exposed right in the heart of Grand Staircase. This is the Kaparowitz Plateau. And our team would argue that this wedge preserves one of the best and most continuous records of terrestrial evolution during the late Cretaceous, so the end of the time of the dinosaurs, anywhere on Earth. So if we look at how those rocks stack up through time, so here you have the late Cretaceous timescale on the left. All the numbers on the far left represent millions of years ago. Each different rock unit is indicated with a different color in the center. So extending all the way back in time to more than 95 million years ago, we have the Laramidia Formation. Stacked on top of that are a series of other rock units, all the way up to the very top, the Canaan Peak Formation, which represents the very end of the time of the dinosaurs, so the time of T-Rex. But for the purposes of today's talk, we're going to focus on these, the Kaparowitz and the Wahweap Formation, because they've produced by far the most dinosaur material from Grand Staircase, and they've been the most intensely studied. Anytime we talk about Grand Staircase's fossil record, we also have to talk about Laramidia. Laramidia is a landmass that was created in the late Cretaceous between about 100 and 70 million years ago, when the Western Interior Seaway, so the big seaway that you see in the middle of this reconstruction, connected from the Caribbean in the south to the Arctic in the north, and essentially split North America in two. So the western landmass, Laramidia, was a dynamic place. This was a time period of intense mountain building, so the initiation and continued mountain building of the Rocky Mountains was during the time of Laramidia. And anytime you build mountains, you start to bury fossil ecosystems. So on the eastern coast of Laramidia, you see these large, broad coastal floodplains, and that is where our dinosaur record comes from. The rocks that were deposited in those floodplains are depicted here. So this is a snapshot of some of those rocks. So in the upper left, we have the Kaparowitz Formation. This is a view north of Highway 12 into the Blues, so just west of here. In the upper right is the Dinosaur Park Formation of southern Alberta, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that shortly. In the lower right is the Upper Missouri River Breaks National Monument. This is the Judith River Formation. And in the lower left is the San Juan Basin of northwestern New Mexico. So this is rocks that you would find in places like the Bisti Denizine Wilderness. And as we saw in the earlier diagram, each of these rock units represents a different snapshot in time. So again, we have our time scale of the late Cretaceous. Each of these colored bars corresponds to a colored star on the map on the right. And as you can see, the blue and green northern localities overlap in time with the yellow, orange, and red southern localities. And that's going to be important later as we get into our talk. But this also highlights the fact that we have such amazing fossils from a huge amount of time, between about 82 and 72 million years ago, and spread across a latitudinal gradient. So going from southern paleolatitudes to northern paleolatitudes. The other great thing about this mountain building is that you form deep sedimentary basins. So the fossil record of Laramidia is among the best anywhere on Earth because of the Rocky Mountain uplift. So here you see a dead duck-billed dinosaur being rapidly buried in a fluvial system. So a river sand channel is about to bury this duckbill. And when we talk about Laramidia's dinosaurs, we're really focused on what we call the big four. So that duck-bill dinosaur in the previous slide is one of the hadrosaurs that you see in the upper left. We also have a great record of armored dinosaurs. Those are the ankylosaurs in the upper right. The superstars of Laramidia are the horned dinosaurs in the lower left, and of course the predators tyrannosaurs in the lower right. So the fossil record of Laramidia was first discovered primarily in southern Alberta in a rock unit called the Dinosaur Park Formation. And the dinosaurs of the Dinosaur Park Formation are among the best preserved anywhere on Earth. So here is a complete juvenile tyrannosaur. You're going to hear more about tyrannosaurs in the other talk in this session. Tyrannosaurs are one of those big four, and this is one of the best preserved individuals of a tyrannosaur ever discovered. And the Dinosaur Park Formation is also really important because it overlaps with the most fossiliferous interval, so the interval of rock in the Kuperowitz Formation that's produced the most dinosaurs. So both of these different rock units produce great fossils, and they overlap in time. So you can see there the red extending from just over 76 million to about 75.5 million. This Kuperowitz window overlaps with the dinosaur record of Dinosaur Park. And before Grand Staircase was created in the mid-90s, this is what we knew of dinosaurs from the Kuperowitz Formation. So we had a tube-crested dinosaur called Parasaurolophus, they're shown on the left. We also had a ornithomimid or ostrich mimic dinosaur based on that partial leg and tail and also parts of the pelvis. But that's all we had. So before the mid-90s, this is the entire fossil record of Grand Staircase. And based on those fossils and what we knew at the time about dinosaur distributions, we hypothesized that the Kuperowitz dinosaurs would be the same as the dinosaurs that had been found up in Dinosaur Park. As I mentioned before, this is a huge collaborative project. It was initiated by monument paleontologist Alan Titus in 2000, along with the Utah Museum of Natural History. But since then, many other groups, many other teams have been out to collaborate on this project, which has allowed us to build this amazing story. The reason Grand Staircase's fossils were so poorly known just 25 years ago was partly because of its remote and rugged nature. So it's really difficult to get in to access these dinosaurs, these dinosaur-bearing beds. It's also really hard to get them out of the ground when you find them. So 100 years ago, it wouldn't have been possible to collect some of the fossils that we're now able to access given power tools and things like helicopters. So this is a duck-billed dinosaur skull and neck being prepared for flying out using a helicopter. We can also use helicopters to put in camps in remote areas. So it opened up this really remote, rugged landscape to science. And the fossils we find are absolutely stunning. So even though this sat dormant for the first century of dinosaur research in the West, it was worth the wait. This is the skin of a duck-billed dinosaur, skin impressions. And we preserve not just dinosaurs, but entire ecosystems. So think about those rock layers as stacked ecosystems. So we find things like the plants, we find all the little animals, things like birds and turtles and crocodiles and fish. We see the influence of insects on fossil plants. So we're able to reconstruct a really detailed picture of what this ancient landscape looked like. Up to this point, we have 11 recognized dinosaurs from the Kuperowitz Formation. So after 25 years of research, we've been able to hit this amazing number of 11 different taxa. And by far the most abundant and most popular are these horned dinosaurs. So on the left, we have Utaceratops, the center Cosmoceratops, and Nasutoceratops. And what was strange about the discovery of these horned dinosaurs is they showed us a different pattern than we expected. So in the south, we had 3 completely new horned dinosaurs, whereas in the dinosaur formation in the north at the same time period, we had only 2, and they were different species. This held for the duck-billed dinosaurs as well, although it was flipped in diversity. There were 3 in the north and 2 in the south. And comparing them, we see that the ones in the south are the same genus, so both are Parasaurolophus and Gripposaurus, but they're different species. So we had a difference from north to south. So that led to our second hypothesis, starting in around 2010, that dinosaurs in the north were actually different from the ones in the south. So basically that hypothesizes that anything you find in those blue northern regions are going to be more closely related to each other than they are to the ones in the southern region. And that's held with new discoveries. So here's a recently named armored dinosaur called Acanocephalus. And it turned out that Acanocephalus was most closely related to dinosaurs from the Kirtland Formation in New Mexico, and possibly even a new armored dinosaur in Texas, to the exclusion of the ones in the north. The same for the Tyrannosaurs. So the pattern to this point shows southern Tyrannosaurs different from the ones in the north. And you're going to hear more about that in the Tyrannosaur talk in this session. But as always happens in paleontology, we make new discoveries and we have to revise our hypotheses. Here we are excavating a duck-billed dinosaur site. And remember, we had a difference in numbers. So we had 3 in the north and only 2 down here in Grand Staircase. Well, this discovery showed that we have this third missing type of dinosaur. And that's based on just this little tiny quarter-sized chunk of bone from above the eye. But based on that little chunk of bone, we can now say that we have all the different representatives in the north, down here in the south, although again, totally different species. More excavations lead to more discoveries, and this is one that we made recently. This big brown blob represents what we call a plate-headed duck-billed dinosaur. So that is the orange portion preserved here. And it's closely related to another plate-headed duckbill that's been known from older rocks in southern Alberta called Brachylophosaurus. So we now know we have a 4th type of duck-billed dinosaur, another new species, at a time when up in the north you only have 3. So you're seeing a new pattern emerge where there are 4 versus 3, higher diversity. That higher diversity was already present when we talked about our horned dinosaurs, remember? We had 3 versus 2. So it's a bit of a surprise in 2013 when we started to find remains of a different type of horned dinosaur. So this one can be differentiated from the previous 3 by having a much straighter, taller horn above the eyes and different ornamentation along the frill. And we're really lucky here in Grand Staircase because we find so many fossils. So we, to this point, have 7 individuals of this new type of horned dinosaur representing all different growth stages from juveniles to very old adults. The orange portions in these diagrams show the skull parts that we have preserved. And so we can now say that we have 4 horned dinosaurs versus 2 at any given point north to south. This is a mystery dinosaur that we've had for the past 15 years. We called it Centrosaur B, and it didn't really match with any of those other 4, but we didn't really know what it was either. It wasn't complete enough. It's just the back of the head, the frill. In 2015, we found this remarkable site in the blues, so on the north side of the monument. It preserves 2 horned dinosaur individuals, and it turns out that that find, along with two finds that have happened since then, help us flesh out what Centrosaur B is, and shows us that there are actually 5 dinosaurs with horns living at one time here in Grand Staircase in the Kaparowitz Formation, when any given time in the north you have only 2. So to this point, we have 9 formally named, 11 recognized species from the Kaparowitz, and we can add that we have 14 currently recognized but unnamed new dinosaurs to add to that. So the record of dinosaurs from the Kaparowitz Formation is going to more than double in the coming years. And that pattern holds for the Wahweap Formation as well. We're not going to get into that, but there are currently 5 formally named species from the Wahweap, and we have an additional 7 that are being worked on and described at the moment. And all of that has led to our third hypothesis. So all these discoveries for 25 years now have led to a new hypothesis that kind of fits into a more modern narrative, that these dinosaurs are different from north to south, in part because of latitude-driven diversity and climate. And that's based on the fossil record of plants from here in Grand Staircase, one of the best fossil records of fossil plants anywhere in Western North America. It shows us that the north was more temperate and the south was probably subtropical or seasonally tropical. The crocodiles and lizards also reflect that diversity, which is what you would expect from ectothermic animals, so things that rely on the external temperature for their metabolism. And we see the same pattern that has emerged with the dinosaurs. We have 6 currently recognized different types of crocodile in the south, whereas we have only 2 in the north in the Dinosaur Park Formation. And so to sum it all up, we have this emerging amazing record from Grand Staircase. We're only 25 years into this project. There's probably 100 more years before we even have a clear picture of what's happening. But what the fossils have already told us is that the Kaparowitz and the Wahweap Formation of southern Utah preserve some of the best and most remarkable dinosaurs that have been found in the last 25 years. And we haven't really even scratched the surface on these other units. So these other fossil-bearing units from much older and younger time periods are still waiting for paleontologists to make amazing discoveries. So with that, there are a ton of people to thank. It's been a really wonderful experience working here in Grand Staircase, and I hope that I'm able to spend the next 25 years of my career digging these amazing fossil resources. Thank you.